Hey everyone, Nate Birt here at Silver Maple Strategies. Excited to have you today. We will get started in about 1 minute. We'll let some folks dial in here and then we will get started in just a moment. I'll set up my sharing on my screen and we'll dive in momentarily. If you're able, please drop a note in the chat. Let us know who you're with, if you're comfortable doing so, and where you're at in the world. And that'll just let us get to know each other a little bit better. All right, I'll be right back with our presentation. All right. Well, I am Nate Birt, CEO and founder of Silver Maple Strategies. Great to have you all with us today. And I love the conversation in the chat. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Natasha, and everyone else who is joining us today. And if you are watching this on replay, thank you for watching as well. If you see me like waving my hands wildly, I've got a fly in my office and it's driving me absolutely bonkers. So please forgive me, and I will try to keep the theatrics to a minimum. Although I know we have a theater organization, a theater nonprofit on the line with us today. So, little theatrics never hurt anybody. Okay, so today's session is all about artificial intelligence for good, ethical, actionable ways nonprofits can use AI today. Importantly, without replacing people, right? We see a lot of conversation in the media about companies making widespread layoffs and often attributing that to AI. So, look, as someone who works with nonprofits every day and has a lot of conversations with those in this space, I can tell you that the spectrum of opinions is wide ranging. And as AI becomes more and more of an issue that is top of mind for people, people seem to be getting more bold in sort of sharing their perspectives, right? On the one hand, you have people who are very concerned, understandably, legitimately so, about implications of AI for various people groups, various communities of people who are potentially disadvantaged, right? Either because data centers are being built in their backyard, because of biases based on what AI has trained on, to environmental issues, right? Water quality, or rather water usage, greenhouse gas emissions, those kinds of things. And then just the general, like, what does it mean for the economy? What does it mean for human purpose? What does it mean for jobs? Those are all very real challenges. I'm not going to tackle those for the purposes of this session today. What I really want to focus on is this technology exists, and unless something alarming or catastrophic or really unexpected happens, it's probably going to be with us for the long haul, right? When people start comparing a technology to the railroad or to electricity, it's important to pay attention because, number one, it's going to be ubiquitous. And number two, more importantly for nonprofits, I believe from my own experience over the past 3 years working with these tools and advising our clients on them, there really are transformative opportunities in terms of your strategy, in terms of your ability to collaborate more effectively. At the end of the day, AI is not about speed, right? It's not about having something or a machine do your work for you, although that, can be attractive in some ways. The real value of AI is that it can help you get to your outcome, whatever your goals are within your nonprofit, in a more effective, strategic, comprehensive way that you may not have previously been able to do, whether because of lack of funding, lack of staff, what have you, right? We all have our blind spots. AI is able to perhaps unlock new potential in the human beings you work with, right? Inside of your nonprofit and outside of it. So that's the framework. That's my bias for today's session. And so with that, let's go ahead and give you a sense of where we're headed. So I've got a free resource for you. I'll talk you through that in a moment. A few housekeeping items, just general, things that you would expect on a session like this. And I do want this session to be interactive. So if there are specific use cases you'd like to explore, I've got a few that I've baked for you today and a free tool that you can actually play around with this yourself on your own, totally free. But you may have something above and beyond that. And so happy to entertain your ideas on the fly today. Give you a sense of who I am and who we've helped. I'm going to walk you through some of the challenges that we see in AI or nonprofits that are AI ready, right? And I think any nonprofit can be AI ready this afternoon. You just have to be self-aware enough to say, hey, maybe this is something we should give it a shot. Again, within parameters that we define as an organization, within ethical use cases. I was actually talking with a nonprofit just yesterday, and the executive director told me point blank, he's like, hey, if we were to work together in the future, could we opt out of LLMs for specific use cases? And I said, well, certainly we could talk about that and make sure that you understand the pros and cons, the trade-offs of doing that. And that is your prerogative, right? And I understand there are some cases in which you may not want to use AI or an LLM. And if you have deeply held beliefs or values or better serves your clients to do something that is exclusively built by humans, then you should do that, right? And so I want to encourage you, like, this is a session today designed to get those creative sparks flying. What you do with it ultimately comes down to your individual and organizational values, your mission, the systems you have in place today or are planning to build in the future. So after we talk about like what it means to be AI ready as a nonprofit, I want to transition into sharing how we work with nonprofits through our resilience leadership model and then give you some practical use cases. So I've actually designed a series of 9 different prompts with AI's help, and built a custom GPT, which is a tool I'll explain in a little bit. But I'll give you some very specific examples and then let you play around with it, and you can make it what you will on your own. I've got a little bit of homework, again, very minimal, 15 minutes or less, and then a quick survey at the end. We'll make sure to save plenty of time in the back half of today's session for Q&A. All right, so with that, we will go ahead and dial this in. Okay, so as my thank you for joining today, whether live or via replay, I've put together a mini guide with specific AI use cases, and we're going to talk through those use cases today. So you're free to take lots of notes. On the other hand, you will get access to the slides and that prompt library and the AI tool in your email if you registered for today's session. If you didn't, email me, Nate@silvermaplestrategies.com. Again, Nate@silvermaplestrategies.com, and I can email this to you. We also have a brand new nonprofit resilience quiz. My marketing strategy partner, Audrey Anderson, did a tremendous job building this resource for you. Audrey is with us today. Hey, Audrey, thanks for being here. And but at any rate, basically in under 2 minutes, what you'll get is a custom score. We'll ask you a few questions about where your nonprofit sits in terms of its growth and impact across things like fundraising, communications, operations. And along with that score, you get a customized report delivered to your inbox in your email with 3 recommended actions. And so it's a great way to really have something tangible, whether you're meeting with your team or talking with funders or talking with your board. This is where we sit today. Here are possible areas we could take action on, either zero cost or limited cost, to get the ball rolling or keep the ball rolling. Okay. So first things first, as always, I like to tell anyone who's joining me for a workshop or a webinar, emphasize focus over notes. I will get you copies of everything you see today. Silence cell phones and desktop alerts where possible. Participate and ask questions. Suspend disbelief, right? Because some of the things I may share may counteract your beliefs or your past experiences, and that's okay, right? Brene Brown likes to talk about the fact that life is like one big paradox, right? 2 things can seem to be contradictory, but you can hold them in your mind together. And so, again, you may think AI is great. You may be on the fence. You may think AI is terrible. My hope for you is that you can keep an open mind, suspend disbelief, and consider the possibilities. Like, what if this could actually be a fit for you? And then I always like to give Dan Sullivan, the amazing business coach, consultant, and author, a great hat tip here for this gap versus gain framework. Being in the gap means the only thing I'm comparing myself and my nonprofit against is my past self, right? And if I've improved, made strides, grown in some way, like, give myself a pat on the back, right? The gap mindset says I'm always going to be comparing myself to other nonprofits, to other executives. We're going to be comparing notes on fundraising and seeing how far behind we are relative to them. don't get into that rut, right? Don't get into the gap. Stay in the game, and you are going to feel great about where you are, and you're also going to see the possibilities that lie ahead of you. All right. Who am I? I'm Nate. I think those who are on today's session have met me, but if you're watching on replay, I've been working in communications, journalism, marketing for well over 15 years. Spent many years in food and agriculture, but today serve nonprofits and social impact organizations in a variety of sectors. I am the author of Seven Secrets of Highly Effective Social Impact Communicators, which is effectively our guide for this kind of purpose-driven work and how to tell stories that drive impact, how to think and believe as a leader in that kind of an organization. I am also host of the Secrets of Social Impact Communicators podcast, so definitely go check that out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite episodes. And I am a proud husband and dad of four kiddos and many, many animals, more than I can name or count, here in the St. Louis area of Missouri on a small farm. So, really excited to be with you today learning together about AI. On the screen here are just a few of the organizations we've been proud to help. So I won't dwell on this other than to say that, there are so many organizations out there, and our goal is to help as many as possible, including with resources like the webinar today to help you unlock growth and impact in your organization. And of course, this year, our goal is to help 50 plus nonprofit executives. We've still got a couple of months to go. We're still working toward that goal, but we've had a great privilege of working with many already and appreciate the chance to support you all today on this call. Okay, so let's dive into the material, starting with the top AI ready challenges I'm seeing nonprofits face in 2025. So I frame this as use cases, right? Because oftentimes when we talk about something as big and seemingly complex as AI, it can be a bit overwhelming, right? Where do I get started, especially if I'm not particularly tech savvy, or maybe I'm really tech savvy, but my colleague within the nonprofit or on our board is not? How do I warm them up to this idea? And so, what I observe again and again is that there are sort of three specific areas where the majority of the nonprofits that we serve tend to face challenges. And also, these challenges are not like, okay, you've hit a brick wall and that's it, you got to stop. This is you've hit the wall and it's like, oh, this should be a light bulb moment that says, I wonder if AI could help us break through the wall. And so the first area is project management overwhelm. And what I mean by this is so many nonprofits are juggling events. It could be a fundraiser, it could be programming like a workshop or professional development that they offer to their clients. It could be preparing for an annual report. It could be putting together a grant proposal, right? What are all of the little steps that have to happen? Who is doing it? When are the deadlines? Like, where do we even start first? That is a perfect opportunity to leverage the power of AI to take complexity and organize it in a way that you can take quick action. And to summarize, effectively, if you get into a situation where there are lots of deadlines and limited clarity about how in the world you're going to get it done, AI can be an outstanding tool to help you. The second AI ready challenge that I observe is writing capacity is maxed out. And it doesn't just have to be writing, but typically in nonprofits, whether you are communicating with the funder, putting together a grant proposal, it may change in the future where maybe we do audio proposals or video, I don't know. But right now, writing is the means by which you tell your story. Writing is the means by which you influence, you educate, you outreach to others. And consequently, look, many of the nonprofits we work with have a staff of fewer than 10 people. And so consequently, you have people wearing many different hats, and they know there are opportunities out there. They may even have a list of grant opportunities, high net worth funders they'd like to go after, private foundations. There may be some semblance of a strategy, or at least a framework for a strategy. And yet they feel a sense of helplessness or a sense of being defeated because there's only so much time in the day. These individuals and leaders and teams have lives outside of the nonprofit. Many of them are working at a significantly discounted rate compared to what they might be earning in the corporate world. Many of them may be volunteer or part-time. And so consequently, like the idea of stacking a bunch of writing assignments, basically like think about being in school. Unless you were like a writing nerd like me, how excited were you when your teacher said, go home and write a 10-page paper on this topic, right? Most of us just feel like it feels like drudgery, right? To use a word that I think Michael Hyatt with Full Focus, I heard him say that first. Like drudgery is a really great way to summarize how writing makes many people feel, especially writing that's not just like creative writing, like writing a letter or sending a text message. It's writing to a very specific format that often varies funder by funder, where you have to check, what seems like a million different boxes, right? Fit the word count, use these keywords, make sure that your budget is organized a certain way, and it can feel overwhelming. So there's lots of opportunities, but limited time to do it. That's a good case where AI can really make an impact for your nonprofit. The final category that occurred to me as a really big challenge that can signal to a nonprofit, hey, AI might be a good resource, is follow up frustrations. What I mean by this is, as a nonprofit, because you may have limited bandwidth, limited staff, limited time, um, it is also true that follow up is critical, right? Following up with partners who may be helping you implement a grant project. Following up with funders. Maybe you had one conversation, you hit it off with the funder, and then life happened, right? The nonprofit happened, and it's been 3 months since you talked with them, right? It's time to follow up with them and circle back with them. So I'm not suggesting, at least at this juncture, that AI is a tool for automating that process. A lot of nonprofits I talk to say, oh, we'd love to just automate the whole thing, right? And just have something that followed up progressively. Pardon me, there are tools like a CRM, right? Like a HubSpot or a Salesforce. And there are actually several, smaller versions for nonprofits, like Little Green Light is one that comes to mind. There are several others that I regret. Bloomerang would be another one, that are designed to help people with some of that process, doing some automations. But I'm talking about even way before you get to that point, just having a system for, I know in my head and my heart, I need to follow up. We need to get a rhythm in place. What do I say in the follow up? Like, how do I keep that conversation going? AI can be a great partner when you have lots of touch points that you know you need to make to be successful, to keep funding coming in the door. And you also have limited focus because your attention is spread so thin. And so I think that's another key example of how AI can help you break through that wall and make progress. All right. So with that, I believe, we believe at Silver Maple Strategies, there's a better way to overcome limitations that you experience, whether that's time or attention or capacity or expertise. So we're going to walk through these steps one at a time. And then after I show you some of these slides, which I'll probably scan through pretty quickly because A, I'm going to share the full prompts with you later, and B, I've actually built these into a tool that you can use this afternoon if you want to. I think it's going to be more fun and practical for you to see it in action. So we're going to do a little bit of an interactive exercise together to demonstrate each of these steps. So number one, build a project management assistant. Number two, or step two, shift away from writing and more focus on editing and framing because you're working with AI to help you get a draft or maybe a skeleton outline. And then step three, we're going to talk through how to emphasize relationships, again, focusing on that follow-up piece rather than repetition, right? Doing the same things over and over again, trying to rack your brain and spend half an hour coming up with an email. Let's get you off the starting block so that you can hopefully more quickly, more effectively get better outcomes from your follow-up, whether it's with funders or partners or team members, by leveraging the power of AI. Okay, so I want to ask if you're ready to get started, if you're ready to put AI through its paces to help your nonprofit, go ahead and type yes in the chat. And I am also going to go ahead and going to pause my screen share real quick, and I'm going to drop this AI tool into the chat for you so that you can follow along with me. Awesome. I see Kevin's ready to go. That's fantastic. Okay, AI tool for today's session. Okay, so I have dropped into the chat the tool that we've built. And so I'm going to start by sharing my screen and giving you just a quick walkthrough of what I'm going to demonstrate in a moment. And what I want you to be thinking about is, are there opportunities that we're facing? And again, you don't have to be specific, right? Don't divulge any proprietary information. But if there are specific examples or use cases you'd like to demo today as far as how AI could help when your nonprofit, would love for you to drop a note in the chat. You can also raise your hand and I can call on you and we can have a conversation over audio or video today. Or you can follow up by sending me an email later, nate@silvermaplestrategies.com. And I'm happy to dig deeper with you and think about how we could help you make progress in that area with AI. Okay, so I mentioned there are three categories of prompts that I've built and sort of three focus areas based on those steps I just mentioned, right? Project management, moving from writing to editing, and emphasizing relationships, so follow up. All right, so moving forward, this one is the project management assistant. I'm just going to read this first prompt to give you a sense of how this is structured. All of the prompts that are included here follow a very similar format, with some language differences to really capture the nuances of these different types of activities. So if you run into a situation where you know you have to make a plan, you got a specific deadline and a specific series of activities that have to happen, it is incredible to me as I've worked with AI to build my own project management plans for myself and for clients. AI, based on its training, is able to infer a lot of details about common steps that are required to accomplish a specific activity. Now, the real magic is when you're able to blend its sort of innate awareness with your own subject matter expertise within your nonprofit to say, like, these are the typical steps we have to do. These are the leaders that are involved in doing X, activity, event, conference, etc. And then working with AI to get a first draft that you can then modify and improve. So you always want to give the AI a role to play. And I always like to swing for the fences. So I started this one by saying, you are the world's #1 nonprofit project management expert. Help me break a complex nonprofit project into a clear step-by-step plan. Now you could easily modify this language and say, instead of a nonprofit project, maybe you say a training session we're giving to, our client base, right? Or you might say we are hosting our annual fall conference, or we are planning for our November annual giving day in our local community, whatever the case might be. It still holds true that you want a clear step-by-step plan. Then it says, I'll describe the goal, deadlines, and team, right? So you need to tell it, what is the purpose of this document, right? What is it going to allow you to accomplish? So always give it a goal. You're also going to give it any criteria around deadlines. So for example, by December 15th, we have to book the room. By January 5th, we have to confirm the guest list. The event is taking place on March 1st from 8 a.m. to noon Central Time. So little details like that, right? You don't need to write an essay. You don't need to write Shakespeare, just some basic parameters that are going to make the output that AI gives you much stronger. And then the team, right? Who is involved? That's especially important on this project management or anything that involves organization, because you really want to get down to the granular level of who's doing this, right? There may be cases where you're doing everything, and that's not uncommon. If you have other colleagues or partners or board members who need to sign off on something or write the check or attend the meeting or whatever, make sure to include that so you have that detailed layer of specificity that's going to give you actually something you can work with and take action on. Again, I'll walk you through what this looks like in a few moments. So then you say, please organize milestones, task owners, and realistic timeframes so we can stay on track and finish early. So you're basically explaining what the process you want the AI to follow, right? You want it to organize. You want it to think about key, mile markers along the way to hosting this conference or event that are really going to be critical. And you also want it to be realistic, right? Because, you could say, I want to design our annual conference. Normally it takes 12 months, but I want to do it in one. Like, let's be real, right? AI can do that for you, but is that actually going to happen in practice? Probably not, right? If it were me, I would just say I quit. There's no way I'm going to do that. If we're going to do an event in 1 month that would normally take 12, it's going to have to be really dialed back. So be realistic. Think about how this is going to play out in the real world and give AI parameters because AI is not, working in your office. It doesn't live at your house. It doesn't know exactly all the nuances here. So like make sure to build some buffer in so this is actually doable. Um, the final technique, which I learned from Jeff Woods, who wrote a really great book, I think I may have mentioned on previous webinars, called the AI Forward. Is the AI Forward or AI Driven Leader? Um, Anyway, this interview technique I found to be enormously helpful because what you're doing is basically saying, hey, these are the basic parameters of my ask, but every ask is different and I am unique and special. And therefore, I want you, AI, to interview me, ask me some very specific open ended questions that will help me give you the layer of additional detail you need to be successful. I also tend personally to get overwhelmed because sometimes if you don't structure a prompt well, it basically dumps like, here are the 3 questions I want you to answer, like respond at your leisure. And to me, that's overwhelming. Like, this to be like a conversation with another person. Ask me the question, wait, give me time to respond. I'll give you my response, then acknowledge my response and give me the next question. So when you say, ask me up to 3 clarifying questions, pausing after each for my feedback before proceeding to the next, that's basically what you accomplish, right? The AI learns to stop, listen, and then respond once you have prompted it to do so. And then the prompt ends, after which I will invite you to continue with the assignment. So basically, when I've answered your 3 questions, you may continue and build the thing that I asked you to build. It's very interesting to me. The more I work with AI, and maybe you've experienced this as well, at times, like it'll take the 3 questions and get off to the races and give me what I want. In other occasions, it has maybe a fourth clarifying question, something that I hadn't considered that's super helpful to me. Or it will sort of give me, okay, here's what I'm planning to do. Does this look right? So something to know if you haven't already experienced this is that AI is by its nature unpredictable, right? There's lots of research going on at these big LLM labs to try to understand what's going on in the mind, right, in the of an AI. The reality is that it is fundamentally uncontrollable in many ways, right? There's a foundation of training. There's a wrapper like we're putting on here where you're giving it a prompt with very specific directions. But by their nature, by design, these are very organic, right? It's not like it's a very predictable like input in, output out, and it's always going to be the same. So that makes it fun. It can also make it frustrating. So just give yourself some grace as you're getting started with this. Um, oh, I love it. Audrey says in the chat, the 3 clarifying questions have been one of my favorite adjustments I've made. I highly suggest doing this for nearly every prompt. Yeah, I totally agree, Audrey. It will take you some more time, right? Because sometimes we just want the answer right away. And that's appropriate for like a very limited, small ask. And I think Audrey's also right that the higher quality the output, if you're asking for a bigger block of copy or something that's maybe complex in its design, those clarifying questions are really going to help clarify your thinking as the human being and consequently get you a better result. Okay, so that's prompt number 1. I'm going to walk you through the others very, very quickly. I'm not going to read them at all. I'm just going to give you a high-level look at what's here and what you can expect to see in the tool. And then we're going to get to the fun part of actually playing with this and testing it out. Okay, so prompt number 2. So basically, there are these 3 steps I've outlined, and within each of these steps, there's 3 prompts. So this next one is specific to event planning. The project planning prompt I shared earlier would be great for, preparing a grant proposal or maybe implementing a program of work after you've gotten the award, things of that. Some of our clients do event planning, so conferences, banquets, fundraising, auctions or things of that nature, all the way to like annual conferences. Maybe they're not hosting the conference, but maybe they're speaking, or maybe they're a speaker and a sponsor or something like that. So lots of different applications for the event planning option. And then grant proposals. So I actually did include one that's very specific to grant proposals. Again, if you use that original master prompt, it'll get you 80% of the way there. This prompt is just a little worded more specifically. with things like drafting, editing, attachments that, for example, you might want to attach an RFP, like a request for proposals from a funder, so that the output you get is really specific to what that specific funder wants to see in your grant proposal. This is a great way to leverage that information. Okay, the next bucket of prompts that we've developed for you is about helping take some of that writing or drafting load off of your plate and really working with AI to help you get off the starting block so you can focus on editing, framing, those strategic storytelling details that are going to make your proposal stand out compared to others. So again, I won't read this one, but this first one is about analyzing an RFP, help me draft a proposal outline or content sections. So I have found that if you're wanting AI to produce a very long, big document, in some cases it does great. In other cases, the document can be rather bland. So with something as big and complex as a grant proposal, I really recommend working with AI either to get, okay, look at the RFP and help me build an outline of every single section I have to address. You could even ask it to pull out specific criteria like word count or keywords that need to be included. Um, Things of that nature. Or you could work with it and say, okay, now I need to work on my project narrative, or I need to work on my budget justification summary. Um, and again, doing that in a very focused, targeted way is going to get you closer to having the finished product. I'm not suggesting you should use AI just wholesale, copy and paste it. In fact, some funders are actively like flagging, and I wouldn't be surprised if there are many out there that are using AI detection software. For the record, AI detection software has a poor rate of return. It is, to my knowledge, I've never seen an example. I've heard one person maybe suggest that Google possibly has this capability, but not necessarily in a way that the public is able to use it. Again, don't quote me on that. That's just pure hearsay. But again, AI detection software may not work in detecting whether content was made by AI or not. But I would be safe rather than sorry. I would just live in the reality that people are going to be using this software increasingly. There are probably going to be times when my writing is flagged. If I didn't use AI at all, it may still get flagged. So we need to start thinking through some of these eventualities so that we're prepared to respond politely, cordially, professionally. I recommend, I think I've shared this on a previous workshop, like having documentation to the degree possible of what came from AI versus what did I revise. A software like Google Docs is a great way to keep track of track changes and things of that. Microsoft Word is another one. Again, to the degree that you can have provenance for how you came up with this. I'm not suggesting that most of you are going to ever come into a situation where you have to defend your homework, but it would be nice to have that as a backup, that data point. Okay, so again, this one's just sort of getting off the starting block with a grant. Um, this is another one that's really focused on, I think I mentioned project narrative specifically in this one. The other one was more generic, like help me outline an entire proposal, like what I will need to do to respond to this funder. This one is very specific at, you could use project narrative, you could use budget justification, you could use some proposals will want you to include like peer-reviewed research examples. These are the kinds of things you could substitute in here to help you really dial in specific sections of a proposal. And then a final writing example would be a lot of you have annual reports, impact reports that go to specific funders, maybe case studies that you're developing. And so this one assigns the role of a communications assistant and says, hey, take some of our data and stories and turn that into an engaging impact report, right? One of the things I'm really stressing with my clients right now is that more and more funders want a relationship. They want to have skin in the game above and beyond just writing you a check and moving on. Not true of everyone, but I think it's especially true with, let's say, private foundations that have very targeted areas where they work. I highly recommend this for anytime you're getting especially a federal government grant, but I suspect the same would be true for a state government grant. Keeping in touch with those key points of contact and also just those who maybe you've been building a relationship, but you've never received a dime from them, right? Organizations, whether that's corporate partners, foundations, grant officers, program officers, this is just a way once a quarter, once per month to share a couple of highlights, things that are going on, and emphasize learning, right? So if you're using AI to build these things, think about what is the outcome I'm desiring for the person that I'm writing to, right? And for funders, I would say you should be writing to funders so that they are not just seeing your good work and, saying yay, yay, you. As important as that is, they're also learning alongside of you. You're sharing things from the field that might inform how they, allocate funding, or giving them a new insight or data point that they can use as they're thinking about proposals like yours in the future. So again, this is all education and outreach. You're not lobbying. You're not trying to get them to write a check today. This is just you sharing insights and valuable information that will grow their knowledge and help them do a better job in the future. You also need to think about the fact that generationally speaking, we have a lot of, millennials, Gen Z, etc., coming into, family offices for high net worth individuals or foundations, right? The landscape of giving is shifting. And so get ahead of that, right? Or stay on the ball with that by recognizing that, look, you may have people coming into funding institutions with zero background in your organization, but also zero background in the industry where you work or with the client base that you serve. Like broadly speaking, they may care about the environment, but they may know nothing about regenerative agriculture, for example. So, find subtle small ways to leverage AI to help you tell that story effectively and to generate those outcomes of building funder relationships, driving learning, and driving long-term strategic partnerships. Okay, last batch of prompts really quickly, and then we will dive in. And again, please be thinking about applications or questions you have. Drop those into the chat. We'll do as many different trial runs and answering questions as possible. So the next batch is really focused on that step 3, which is emphasizing relationships over repetition. So the idea here is, how can I improve my follow-up process with my colleagues, with partners, with funders, using AI? So in this case, the first prompt is really focused on donor and funder centered follow up messages, right? Hey, we had a great meeting 3 months ago. Would love to get back on your calendar. Or it might be, hey, we just issued this new report or this new study that we've done. We thought that data point, 30% of the world's waterways are contaminated by, crayon wax. We thought you might want to know that, right? Like things of that nature. And again, the goal of this AI tool is sort of collect some of those insights from you and then help you think about creative ways to structure the insights that would be of value to that funder or donor audience. A next point would be like thank yous. Like one of my clients recently has had some great opportunities to have meetings with prospective funders. They have people who come to their events. How do we like thank all of them? How do we make sure we're following up and being good stewards, right? Stewardship is often a term that's used in nonprofits, as you all know better than anyone, to talk about that ongoing relationship management. And so this is a prompt you can use really to focus on thank yous, gratitude, just like proactively following up, especially in cases where you've met with someone in person or over Zoom. It's a great way to connect. And then finally, this is a proposal you could use in the event that you've been invited to submit a grant proposal. Like, let's say you sent in a letter of intent and they said, yes, we would love for you to send a proposal. The proposal is shipped. This is a way to be, brief, as this prompt says, brief, gracious, and proactive. This is just an opportunity to, again, a specific use case that you might encounter in the day-to-day work in your nonprofit. It's a great opportunity to just say thank you and also leverage the power of AI. All right. So in summary, here are those core challenges I mentioned that we're seeing. Here are the opportunities. Now I want to show you a few examples of how that looks in practice. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to check the comments and see if there's anything I might have overlooked. Okay, so let me answer a couple of questions from Kevin. Kevin, thank you so much for these. And then I'll show you examples on the AI tool itself. So Kevin's first question is, are you including emojis for the purpose of this webinar, or do you include those in the prompt for some reason? Kevin, thank you for the question. So those emojis, I think I have a couple thoughts, right? So I included the emojis strictly for the purposes of breaking up really text-heavy slides in today's presentation, if I'm being totally honest. Um, I have never found emojis to be helpful in guiding a prompt to like, guiding the AI to have a better output. However, um, it seems to me, based on recent experience, like within the last week or two, that I have had success. Like, let's say, for example, I am asking AI to help me draft a document, and I'm pulling from notes from an interview I conducted. I am pulling from maybe an article on the web, a podcast transcript, and a screen grab from a slide deck that has like 10 data points on it. So where images can come into play, I think for a nonprofit immediately, is that I have no doubt that you or funders you work with or others have publicly available PowerPoint slides that you're free to do with what you will. So I've had really good success actually uploading to the AI prompt along with my text those kinds of screen grabs. So maybe it's a PDF of the document itself. Maybe it's just literally like I use the clipper tool on my desktop to say, like, take a picture of this, save it as a JPEG or a PNG file, and attach that. It is amazing. Like the recall, the ability of the AI to read the picture and translate that into text, I can then copy and paste into my document, is like nearly picture perfect. So that's an example of like it's not an emoji example, but it's an example of how to use imagery to basically, as opposed to me just typing it down like, oh, it says like 30% of crayon wax is in the ocean. I don't have to type that up manually. I can just ask the AI to transcribe that for me. And you don't even have to give it that instruction. You can just say, look at the attachment, look at my raw notes and this link and this podcast transcript, and do the following things for me, right? It intuits those things very well. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Second question, how effective is ChatGPT at crawling our website or PDFs to gather background our information on our nonprofit? This is a really interesting one. So if you had asked me this like a month ago, I would say it's awesome. And I still think in large part, AI is tremendous at crawling websites. Now, there are cases where AI claims it can't do something when in fact it can. And so in that case, it's imagine that you're talking to someone on your team or maybe someone in your family, like your crazy Uncle Bill, who you love dearly and he drives you nuts. It can be like, okay, for example, this week I was working with a client that needed to take I wanted to give it a URL. I was finding information and paraphrasing it with my own language. Basically, like, this is like a research driven blog post. And so I wanted to cite like Iowa State University had this research study, and 30% of nonprofits say they're excited about the potential of AI, right? So I wanted to sort of capture that data point, but what I needed was, along with that summary that I'm writing, I want AI to give me an MLA formatted citation because that's what my client wants. So there are a series of endnotes at the bottom of the article. And I've actually built an AI tool for my business that creates MLA citations. But what I kept encountering was whether it was a PDF uploaded to the web or whether it was just a basic HTML website, it kept telling me, like, I can't figure this out. I'm afraid I can't access this. I think that's probably a prompting issue on my end. Like, if I really pressed it, it might be able to. So there are a couple of workarounds. I would say that I've done big research projects where it's curating dozens of URLs and things like that. And it's able to do a great job and provide me with accurate links. I would say a couple of watchouts. Number one, if it gives you errors like that, challenge it a little bit. Say, hey, I know you're able to do this. I've read elsewhere where AI can do this. What I'm asking for is, and then restate it and see if that helps. If you're doing something as simple as a citation, you might just copy and paste, like, here's the headline, here's the author, the date it was published, in the URL, and AI can use that to extrapolate the citation. In other cases, you may have to do some manual work on your own or find a workaround. The other thing I would say is I would encourage everybody on today's call, if you have a ChatGPT account or Google Gemini or Claude, I don't even know if you need a paid account, but if you haven't tried the deep research function on ChatGPT or Google Gemini, do that. And what you could actually do is go into there and write a prompt that says something like, you are the world's foremost expert in my nonprofit. So fill in the blank, right? Para Theater. Um, one of my clients is Code Art or Think Regeneration, right? These are some, you are an expert in my nonprofit, fill in the blank, give it the URL, and then you could say something like, give me an exhaustive summary, scan every single website, every single web page within the nonprofit's website, and also any public facing URLs that reference my nonprofit and give me a detailed breakdown of. And then you could list, like, I want a detail on historic funding levels. I want a detail on mission, vision, and values. I want to give you to look at explicit and implicit challenges I might be facing and possible solutions to address those challenges. And then click, conduct the deep research or whatever the button's called. So deep research is not a function I would necessarily use every day, but if you really want to test the capabilities of AI to scan the web and give you really thoughtful research, even though it's not perfect, even though you still have to validate and vet the content that it gives you, I think you'll be blown away, right? And then you can sort of think about the applications like, oh, if it knows this much about my nonprofit, what if we send it out to do, private foundation research or information on corporations that fit these certain boxes that might be potential funders of ours? Um, I think that's something that I would consider. So bottom line, ChatGPT is pretty darn good at scanning websites. Some days it has a brain fart and it's not working great. Other days it works awesome. There are workarounds, and if you really want to go deep down the rabbit hole and see just how amazing AI is already with one of these very like light agentic capabilities, deep research is something you should really try, right? Because what it will do is it will come back to you with like a 20, 30, 50 page report. Narrative, easy to understand. You can tell it, write to me like I'm a high schooler, write to me like I'm an executive or whatever. And it'll also include citations with clickable links at the end, like dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of websites that it's scanned, typically in under an hour, often as little as like 20 or 30 minutes. So give that a shot. See if that, opens some creative doors for you. I hope that helped. Yeah, my pleasure, Kevin. Okay, so now we are going to do the fun stuff. I know I've been promising this. Okay, so give me 1 second here. I'm going to pull up the AI and we're going to give this a go together. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my screen and we will dig in here. Okay, if you can see my screen, go ahead and type yes in the chat just so I know this is working okay. Um, so this is an AI tool I built for today's session, and I'm going to give this away to you for free. You'll get it via email, but I'll also give you a quick survey at the end. If you take that survey, you'll automatically get a link to access this tool and also the prompt library that I promised. Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Natasha, for confirming. So I'm going to just show you real quick with one example how this works, and then you can have fun playing around with it on your own. So to get started, you just go to this URL and click this button, let's find a winning AI use case for my nonprofit. When you do that, it is going to give you the very 9 prompts that we've been through together on this session. So you can pick which one of these you'd like to test. So if someone would, go ahead and type in the chat, whoever gets there first, drop in which of these numbers 1 through 9 would you like to test? And we will test that live here as we wrap up our call today. All right, Kevin says 9, grant funder follow-up. Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. So so what I did is I literally just copied and pasted this. You could also just type in the number 9. You don't have to type the words unless you want to. Go ahead and click enter. All right. So when you give it that selection, what it's going to do is it's going to load for you the very prompt that's included in the prompt library, the language that I showed you earlier in today's session. So let's just make up some stuff for fun. Who is the funder or foundation you'd like to follow up with, and what type of grant did you apply for? So let's say the funder is the Cherry B. Jones Foundation, and we applied for a $250,000 grant so that we can host 30 professional development sessions with artists and art supply manufacturers for the purpose of transferring knowledge and improving the environmental impact of art everywhere in the I states in the Midwest of the US. So this is very specific. You wouldn't have to give it this much detail, but what I'm trying to do is give it some additional context so that the output, the letter that we're going to be writing to our funder as a thank you, specifically addresses here are the outcomes we're going for. Here's the name of the funder. Here's the amount that we asked for. And again, maybe not all of those details factor into the letter, but just give it enough material to work with. And then you can sort of think about it like a big funnel, right? You're dumping in a bunch of information at the top of the funnel, and then you're narrowly, gradually going down until you have the best of the best stuff at the very bottom of the funnel. Okay, so click submit. Okay, clear and compelling. So again, I think this is always fun. It also just gives me a chance to laugh because AI had really bad psychophancy problems earlier this year, where it just gave you glowing praise above and beyond anything that any normal person would do. It's dialed it back a little bit, but you always feel like $1 million when you work with AI. Just be very self-aware and like, yeah, that's fine. Like, I'm glad you like it, but I really want to stress test this, make it better. Again, going back to what I said earlier, always work with AI with your outcomes in mind. How is this going to help you drive a stronger outcome? Not it thinks I'm so smart, or it's going to make me faster, or it's going to take this work off of my plate. Really think about it as a partner to help you improve outcomes. Okay, actually, that insight came from someone who works with a lot of consultants, Mandy Ellefson. I follow her on LinkedIn, and she had an article this week all about outcomes. Right, so many organizations are promoting or selling AI services focused on speed, which is really a race to the bottom. Right, what the benefit of AI is that it delivers better outcomes. Okay, so question two: when did you submit the proposal, and what stage are you in now? Okay, so let's say we submitted the proposal 1 month ago. We're cautiously optimistic about funding from this award, and I misspell frequently. AI will overlook that unless it's like an egregious error, but it's able to pick up the signal from the noise. So we are optimistic about the funding, but we don't want to be perceived as pushy, nosy, a bad partner. We'd like to come up with a subtle way to keep lines of communication open. We expect to receive notice from the funder within the next, I say misspelled, within the next 3 months. Um, uh, and we've received automated notice that the application was successfully delivered. Okay, so in this case, like you're not just saying like these are the basic facts, but you could also share like again, to the degree that you're comfortable, to the degree that it aligns with your ethical and moral framework as an organization, like, hey, we're nervous or hey, we're excited, but we also don't want to come across as jerks. I hear a lot of my clients who are finding value with AI, and they also have these, again, as do I in my own business, like fears, hopes, dreams, imposter syndrome. And so I'm certainly not suggesting that AI should be your therapist. I'm a strong believer in the power of therapy and the power of coaches. I work with both of them regularly. They're very much human. AI, though, can be a helpful way to really help you think about some of those nuances. Even if you're not using it as a therapist, you're using it as a way to say, okay, these are the social signals around this. These are some of the complexities or nuances. Help me frame this in such a way that I don't sound like a shill. I don't sound like the sleazy salesperson. That's a really big hangup for a lot of people in business development or fundraising in nonprofits, because it's not a for-profit where you feel like, again, I work in a for-profit. For-profits are great, and it is fundamentally different than being in a nonprofit. And so oftentimes people in nonprofits didn't study sales before they became a fundraiser. They came from they maybe founded the nonprofit and now they're the executive director slash business development person, Or in some cases, maybe folks came from the for-profit world into the nonprofit space, and just the process, the language, the posture is very different from the for-profit world. So AI can help you with those nuances. Okay. Finally, would you like your message to come from you, your executive director, or development grants manager? So in this case, I'm going to say, this award's really important to us. It needs to come from the top of our organization. So I'm just going to say executive director. Okay. So, here is an example. So basically it says, okay, great. This is a warm executive level message. Sending a signal partnership and respect. And then it's going to give you the draft. So, you can see here, it's got subject line down here, the name of the organization, your executive's name here. And then it gives you, like, I hope this finds you well. I want to extend sincere thanks. Our proposal, and then it pulls out some of these key data points. Again, I would always make sure to remove emojis. In fact, in the prompt, I should have said, leave out emojis. Imagine I'm literally copying and pasting this. I don't recommend you do that without significant care to make sure you're editing appropriately, but take out the emojis, take out any bolding or weird formatting. Again, if people see your bolding stuff randomly, increasingly people are going to say, doggone it, it was AI generated. They didn't even care to send me a personal note. Forget you, right? I hope that doesn't happen, but I think I've heard stories like that, right, from the world of academia and nonprofits. So, can you use AI for this specific purpose? Absolutely. Should you really dial it in and make sure it genuinely sounds like you or your executive director before you hit send? Yes, like triple check your homework. And that can be frustrating, right? Because AI supposedly is supposed to save us all this time, and it can, but don't shirk your responsibility to be the human in the loop and to really make sure you get a strong final product. Okay, so that's an example. And then of course you could copy paste, edit this in a Google Doc before actually using it. You could come up with a second version and so on and so forth. Or you could go back to the tool and try a new prompt for a different example, just to kind of give you a sense of how this works and maybe some possible use cases. So I'm going to pull up a quick survey about today's session. That will just help me get a sense of, was this helpful to you or not? While I'm doing that, though, I'm curious, was that demonstration helpful? Does that maybe give you some good ideas to keep in mind for the future? So drop a note in the chat. Let me know, helpful, not helpful, or totally confused. Let's follow up later, Nate. Once you do that, if you would, either now or later on, I would love for you to take this quick survey. This just helps us make sure we're delivering value to you and make sure that we're answering the questions that you have. Awesome, Kevin, thanks. Helpful, at least for those of us who aren't afraid of ChatGPT. There are a fair number who either are afraid or just, opposed to it altogether, which is, I understand that. Okay. So this is the quick survey code. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that homework that I promised. And that is, of the 3 different steps we've talked about, right? We talked about different avenues where AI could help your nonprofit. I want you to think about and identify one area where you want to experiment, or maybe talk to your board about, hey, this is a possible way that our nonprofit could really unlock some benefit and help us maybe take action in areas where we've been thinking about. So I'm always a big believer, like, never go into something, whether it's a webinar or a book, without extracting at least one thing of value you can use later. So definitely think about that for yourself and figure out what that's going to be. Last but not least, I'll leave you with a quick quote and then say thank you for being here today. Action is so important. And Theodore Roosevelt once said, in any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The worst thing you can do is nothing. So whatever you do, know that it's the right thing, right? 15 minutes or less, one action step. Maybe it's opening up the tool and giving it a spin. Maybe it is reviewing the prompt library and thinking about how you could tweak one of those prompts to fit a specific use case in your nonprofit. Whatever the case might be, I think you're going to find value here. And I think what you're going to find, and please push back and send me a note if not, there are, in fact, ethical ways to use these tools. And it can also be true that they can be scary. We can have colleagues who are very opposed for a variety of reasons. We can have a lot of conversations around just how to get off the starting block and start experimenting. Again, my goal for you is to have better outcomes, better impact, higher revenue, more peace of mind as a nonprofit. And so, consequently, I hope that as you start to play around with AI, you start to realize those benefits for yourself, your board, your nonprofit leadership team, and the clients that you serve. So, with that, that is the conclusion of our session today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your valuable lives, schedules, all the things you have going on to be here today. Again, all these materials will be circulated to you later by email if you signed up. And if you didn't, for whatever reason, you're watching this on YouTube later, send me a note to nate@silvermaplestrategies.com or contact us through the website link on your screen, and we'll be happy to get these resources to you. Until next month, I'm Nate Birt. Thanks so much. Happy holiday season, everyone. For those of you in the US getting ready for Thanksgiving in a few weeks, have a wonderful time with family and friends, and I'll see you here soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.